Well, what's up, H-Fam? Thank you so much for tuning in early with us here at the Connect Corner, where the plants are fake, but the people are not. We have something very special for you today. We're gonna be talking about one of our very own staff members' journey. She actually has a brand new book titled The Widow's Oil. Man, you have to tune into this. You have to get this book. If you have experienced grief, and pretty much that's talking about loss. It could be transitioning from a new job. It could be a broken relationship. It could be a death. This book is for you. So I can't wait for you to hear this conversation with our very own Nickcole Byrd. Well, how are you doing, Mother Byrd? You know, I always struggle with what to call you.
Why?
Because like so many people is minister, pastor, and you've seen me grow my whole life. So at one point, I don't know if I called you Miss Byrd, and then we became co-workers. But like sometimes I've called you Nikki. So if you notice, I typically always revert back to Mother. I usually call you Mother Byrd.
At the essence, yeah. But I think I've worn so many hats that may have something to do with it.
No, that definitely has something to do with it. I don't know if it's evangelist, doctor, professor, Coach Byrd. You know, you are amazing. But thank you so much for joining us, and happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. I'm excited about this Mother's Day.
Yes, no, it's gonna be awesome. And just real quick, I know a lot of the congregation knows who you are, but for those who have no idea, who is this lady? What's this book about? What's going on? Do you mind introducing yourself to them?
Yeah, so I am a servant leader at heart. I've been with Higher Dimension Church for 22 years. My son is gonna be 22. 22 years. I've been on staff for about 14 years. And
was that a consecutive 14?
No, it was a lot of off and on, a lot of ins and outs. I have been in a space this last season where a big part of my life transitioned. And a lot of the major things that have happened in my life happened under this leadership. But I never thought this big transition or this shift in my life that this would happen. And that was the loss of my husband. September 19, 2019, 9/19/19, I lost my husband. And that shifted the direction of my life. It revealed to me some things about myself I didn't know about myself. And it grew me up a bit. And so I'm excited to share. Yes, I wrote a book. It's called The Widow's Oil. And this book was given to me on the beaches of the Cayman Islands.
That's a nice place to get revelation.
Yeah, I was near the water, and the Lord began to speak to me just about the next season and the next chapter in my life. And though it has been a hard season, it has truly been a season of transformation for me and my family.
Yeah, no, man, that's just wow on so many levels, from the 14 years to this untimely transition that no one really could have expected. And then the Lord gave you the Widow's Oil, Cayman Islands beach. I remember when you took that trip. Yeah. And when he gave it to you, what was at the essence of it?
So when you go through loss, right, and you suffer something so hard and so devastating, for me, it has been my experience to always look for a word. Like, it has to be an answer. I think it's your human nature to want an answer to why you are experiencing what you're experiencing. Not only that, I was wondering why at this time of my life, when I felt like I was on the peak of ministry, peak of womanhood, excited about where I was in my marriage and with my children as a parent. And in this season of my life, God decides that he would transition my husband. And so with that, you find it hard to celebrate what has remained. And so I was searching for answers. Like, God, how am I gonna do this? I tell a lot of my friends, I felt like emotionally, I was a bird, quote unquote, with one wing.
Wow.
Because you never know how much of an anchor
Yeah.
the spouse is in your life until they're gone. And so everything that I stood for, all the ministry work that I did, the woman that I had become, we had been married 24 years.
Wow.
That person is really the wind beneath your wings, but you really can't really fathom that until they're absent and they're gone. And so in that, the Lord began to give me a word through the widow who had lost her husband. She was devastated. He was a man of God. She was a woman of God. They believed in the faith. And she comes to the prophet and she asked the prophet, I need some help. My husband, she uses these words, my husband is dead. And those words alone made me stand in my tracks, because that's the first place of admittance, the first place where I had gotten a revelation about really receiving and accepting the sovereignty of God in my life.
Yeah, man, that is amazing. Again, you know, we're still praying with you and the family because, you know, like you said, you've been here 22 years and your husband Peter was a part of that as well.
Right.
So y'all truly are family, and it was so unexpected for all of us. And, you know, it's crazy that, you know, that story was not crazy because God is a God of providence. He always has our best intention at heart. And that story pops up, you know, scripturally for you. You're now in this season. And most people, you know, may think that, oh, this is an outlet for her.
Right.
But I know you. I know your heart. That's not what it was. I'm sure it was tough writing this and putting it together, but I know at the core of it, you were really thinking about other people.
Right.
And why do you believe, or like just what inside of you really drove that? Because I don't think a lot of people realize the widows was actually one of the first assignments for volunteers at the church.
Right.
We had the deacons and the widows were not being taken care of.
Right.
And you become a widow and you don't go asking for help. You revert to, how can I help others?
Right. Right. So here's an interesting statistic. Early on, as I began, because I'm analytical in that way, I think in that way, I'm looking for answers. I'm looking to the Bible for answers, but I'm looking practically as well. And so I found an interesting statistic that says 700,000 women each year become widows.
Wow.
700,000. So number one, I'm not alone in this. But what was even more incredible about that number, on the average at the 14-year mark, a lot of those women pass on themselves. They die, and they die from brokenheartedness. And I said, my God, I did not want to be a part of that number, because even though I was hurt, broken, felt like the rug was pulled from underneath me, I knew that there was still a work that God was calling me to do. I knew that I had my family. I have amazing 2 daughters, and I have a son, and 2 grandkids. And there are some things that I believe God wanted me to do. But here's what's even more amazing. I am not experiencing the loneliness and disappointment, and it's only by the grace of God that most widows, those that meet that 14-year mark, experience. Why? I had an amazing faith community. My church family, the people that I've walked with in God, the people that I've served over years and years, people I've prayed for, laid hands on, prayed for their family members, they were there for me. And so having that faith community, having that connection was a huge part. I had intercessors that would drive up to the building where I live and be in the apartment complex. They don't come knock on my door, but they're out there in their cars praying. Like, I had staff members come to my house and help me clean and help me organize and just help me with the day-to-day, because the day-to-day for a widow now becomes a chore. So I had that. I had my pastor, I had my first lady, like, holding me up, you know, where I had fallen, where I felt like I just could not make it into the next day, and them speaking into my life and them loving on me. Those things you can't take for granted. People who have people that pass away and die, or even if they're going through a divorce, they don't have that peace and grace surrounding them. And I had that. And so my prayer is that the grace that I have to grieve, that I could be able to provide that and share that with other people.
That's good.
Yeah.
And I haven't read the book yet. I'll make sure I read it. But what, in writing this, what do you feel just stuck with you the most?
I would say that the foundation of who I was in the faith, everything about that was challenged.
Okay, explain. What do you mean by that? That's good.
Okay, so I've been in this ministry thing for a piece now. Like, I've been in this thing, and I've seen God do some amazing things in other people's lives. And sitting under pastor, right? I've seen some stuff. I know what God can do.
Right.
But when it hits your house, you know, when the Lord say it's done in your house, everything that I preached, everything I taught, everything I believed, I came face to face with that. Because you want to know, Lord, I have been your faithful servant. I have been your handmaiden. I have given my life. I've even prayed for people who had brain tumors and they go to the hospital and they said they don't have it anymore.
Wow.
Why is it when my husband's on his sick bed, why am I even in this space?
Right.
And so I got that revelation of the sovereignty of God in my life, that God has the ultimate decision for everything that's going to happen going forward. And so one thing he told me, and I remember this verbatim, he was like, every prayer that you will ever pray and every prayer that you've ever prayed, it came to this: my sovereignty. I am the decision maker. And so you, in that space, it's another level of faith, because you have to really trust God with your life for real. You know, I might have trust God for career, you know, even things for my children. But when you have to trust the Lord with the healing of your heart, when he didn't heal your husband, it's like, you still have to believe that he can heal. Man, it was a work in progress. It's still a work in process for me.
No, that's huge. I was, you know, Andy Stanley, one of my favorite preachers, and he was talking about, he's in a series called Faithful. And last week he said, when you see how God has been faithful in other people's lives,
Right.
it helps you to know that he'll be faithful in yours in the midst of a storm. So just hearing you say that just reaffirms that that is the case. And I definitely see how that can affect someone, because most people they like, oh, this not real.
Right.
I didn't did all, I didn't pray, I didn't lay hands, I've been serving, but you couldn't, like a lot of people, I can see why they would be ready to shoot the deuce.
Which a lot of people do.
Yeah.
But it's in those times of devastation, it's in the middle of the valley experience, Terrence. That's not the time to pull away from God.
Right.
It's the time to pull closer.
Most
But a lot of times we want to run and get away. That's not working. But that is the time that the authenticity of what you say you believe is tested.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you don't go through anything, you don't really know where you are in the faith.
Right.
And I really found out where I was in the faith. And it's okay, because God can handle your vulnerability. God can handle your questions, right? He can handle the what ifs, right? Because I had a lot of those. He can handle the regret you may have. And I think the other biggest thing is really getting a revelation about what is the church's responsibility in the life of a widow or orphan or anybody that's in trauma or maybe experiencing emotional turmoil. That the church truly has a responsibility, but we don't. I have found that it has been tough for some churches to handle. And so I think us getting a revelation about, one, creating a space that's not judgmental. You know, I think the first thing we do is we say, like the guy in the Bible was like, who sinned?
Yeah.
You know, what did they do? Or you didn't pray enough, or you didn't serve enough. This is why this is happening to you. But the Lord comes and tells the people, he says, no, nobody sinned. He didn't sin, the parents didn't sin. It was so that my glory can be revealed. And I truly believe this next season of my life, that's what glory is being revealed. The fact that I can sit on the platform and have this conversation, because there was some days that I didn't want to get out of bed, right? I didn't want to be around people. I didn't want to continue. I didn't even want to talk to my kids. But the grace of God was like the woman who had the oil in her house and she said she only had a little bit of oil. He said, I could work with that. I could work with that. I'm gonna multiply that. And we just have to make room for God to minister to our hearts. And I think the church has a responsibility to help those that are struggling to do that.
No, most definitely. And of course, with this, hitting so close to home here at HD, it definitely enlightened me, it enlightened Pastor on being more intentional with orphans, widows, because it's a reason it was the first assignment. Like that didn't happen by coincidence. And being a new father, freshly in my marriage, I see why God is intentional with orphans and widows, because he is the groom and he is the father. Yes. So I'm 100% with you, and I know we're gonna do our part to make sure that we are here for widows, we're here for orphans. Before we go, if you had something to say, you can look at the camera. What would you say to someone that's experiencing loss right now? What would you tell them?
I would tell them that God has not forgotten you. As a matter of fact, he says, those that are brokenhearted, he's actually near them. So his presence is surrounding you. But one of the things that you would have to do is give yourself permission to believe that God can heal. And I know that it's hard to do. You're broken, you're disappointed, you feel left behind, but God is in the business of healing. As a matter of fact, Jesus's ministry, 1/3 of Jesus's ministry was a healing ministry. And God wants to heal hearts. And just because something that you had, you no longer have it anymore, that could be tough. But you need to turn yourself to the perspective of what God is doing in the present, because he's about to do something amazing in your life.
Couldn't have said it better myself, man. Listen, y'all go get your copy of the Widow's Oil. It's on Amazon, it's on iBooks, right? It's on Google. Wherever you need to find a book, go get you the Widow's Oil. It will definitely bless your life. And you may know someone who may need to read this book. Go ahead and get that for them as well. Man, thank you so much for being here with us today.
I enjoyed it.
I'm looking forward to all that the Widow's Oil and just you in general are going to impact. I've told you that I don't believe you are mitigated to Houston. I believe you have a global reach. So I'm just glad to be able to witness. Well, family, thank y'all so much for tuning in with us today. Service is getting ready to start. Go ahead and share this experience with someone. You never know what they might miss. And happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there.